Mr. Garibaldi.
Please. Michael, did I mention I really enjoy your broadcasts?
You know, if this interview hadn't been set up weeks ago by Earth Force Public Relations, I'd swear that Commander Sinclair did not want to be interviewed by Interstellar Network News.
I can't imagine that.
This is supposed to be an event. This is the second anniversary of Babylon 5 going online. We took a poll when this station first opened, and 75% of ISN viewers said that this place wouldn't even last 5 minutes. Lloyd's of London put the odds of this station surviving even 1 year at 500 to 1. Against. Is there a bathroom around here?
Third door to your left.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Matt.
And this is
We Are All Kosh.
a Babylon 5 rewatch. Hi, we're back. It's been a week. It hasn't been a week for us. We recorded the other episode yesterday because we're trying to get ahead. The universe is conspiring against us because one of our kids has a stomach flu. So please appreciate that we are recording this in between going and mopping up
Bodily fluids.
stuff. So appropriately, we are going to talk about season 1, episode 4,
Infection.
which is like only one person gets infected.
Right. And potentially.
They should have called it Protect.
He protect. He attack. The best defense is a good offense.
He does not look like a snack. He does look very moist, though.
Very organic.
It's got a sheen to it. This is when we still made things look real by making them look wet. If you want to know what I'm talking about, watch Avatar, the movie. Not Avatar, The Last Airbender, but, you know, the one with the big blue aliens on the planet with the flying things.
Yeah.
That was like, ooh, CG is so cool. I can do an entire movie that's almost exclusively CG, and all the creatures are going to look real, and you know they're going to look real because they're going to look moist. And everybody looks moist.
The whole time.
It's fine. It's just, it was the era of CG. It's fine. And this isn't CG, this is real life. So there's literally somebody lubing this dude up.
In the second Avatar movie, they're even more wet.
I did not watch it because it's in the water.
It's in the water.
I did not watch that. I am not sorry. I don't have anything to say about that. I was going to say I'm ashamed. I'm not ashamed. It's one.
You're not proud of it. You're not ashamed of it.
I have no feelings about
You're
it.
indifferent.
Movies over 3 hours long should have an intermission. I said what I said.
Except Lord of the Rings.
That's different. I was young and I had a younger bladder. It's fine. It could have done with an intermission. There's definitely
movies in the theater.
movies in the theater. If you're watching a
So
movie
when
in
they
the
show
theater,
Lord of the Rings movies, extended editions in the theater.
oh, they're like
They
4.5 hours long. They should
Right.
absolutely have an intermission. No one is making it through that whole thing. Do you know how bad I had to pee at the end of Return
Skill
of the,
issue.
of the King? I had to pee so bad at the end of Return of the King. I still remember how bad I had to pee at the end of Return of the King. You can Google it ahead of time. People will now post the best times to get up and go to the bathroom so you won't miss anything.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, if that's a thing that we're having to do, then let's go ahead and plan for that. I mean, The Lord of the Rings is supposed to be 6 books anyway. Tolkien has it arranged as 6 books.
Yeah.
So you could just take natural breaks, break it into 6 chunks, you know, part 1, part 2 of each movie, and it would make a lot of sense. And no one would get mad because it would make it more accurate to the source material. My voice just did that when I was saying if I tried to say it again, it would come out the same way. I have no control over that. I saw, I'm on Threads a fair amount, and I saw a thread, I don't know. And it was like, people, extreme fans of any particular thing ruin it for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And so my comment was, but how will we know when we love it wrong?
In my head, when you post on Threads, you call it a stitch.
Except you stitch videos on other stuff.
And you get in stitches when something's funny.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
The look of self-satisfaction. It makes me think we should do video podcasts. Not enough that we're ever actually going to do video podcasts, but the look of satisfaction on your face. Plus the fact that you have your mustache held back from your mouth with tiny little rubber bands is...
I'm training it to stay up.
Okay. No, it's fine. I get it. I also pull my hair away from my face when it's bothering me, so why could you not pull your mustache away from your mouth? I totally get it. Anyway, back to the episode of Babylon 5.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We open with Garibaldi and a reporter. A reporter. I'm not sure if we ever actually get her name or if it matters. It doesn't matter. She's a reporter. Matter. What matters is apparently mainstream media is regarded with the same level of skepticism that it currently is.
Disdain.
In the year 2258 because she's like, so when is the commander due back? And Garibaldi's like, oh, soon. I love that Garibaldi is the blandish man. The like, oh, we need to keep this person busy for an indefinite period of time.
Oh, yeah. He's the jester archetype.
Yeah. Who can we give him to? Oh, we can give him to Garibaldi because he can speak wisdom through jest.
Right. Like he does at the end.
Yeah.
To the commander.
Oh, don't blow our load yet. I want to get to that because that was a good moment. I forgot that happened and I was pleasantly surprised and ecstatic and overwhelmed with joy and happiness. And we're going to talk about it. Obviously, we talk about a lot. So anyway, he goes soon and she goes, okay, so like what soon? And he's like, I don't know, longer than a little while, sooner than later. Like, I don't know. Do you want to... Somewhere in that range.
He's literally just there to BS her.
Yeah. Oh, he's there to blandish. He's there to like, look over here. And then he's like, hey, look at that. See this root that this guy is selling? And I love this actor clearly just has. I think he's one of the guys that's in the League of Non-Aligned Worlds. He
is a person that is a member of the same race as one of the other persons.
Okay, it was the same mask.
On the
and it clearly doesn't flex because he's just sitting there looking in one direction.
That's such a stereotype. Oh, they all look the same.
They all look the same. I mean, I'm just saying there's a limited amount of resources. If they could reuse a mask, they're going to reuse a mask. And this is like a painted piece of ginger. I don't know what this is, but it's pretty funny. He picks it up and he's like, you ever tried one of these? And the lady's like, what the hell is that? And he's like, I don't know. According to the translator, it's either a floor wax or an aphrodisiac. And I can't decide if it's worth the risk. She's like, the fuck is wrong with you? Where is the commander? And he's like, oh, he's out checking out a damaged transport. And she goes, isn't he the commander? Isn't that somebody else's job? And he's like, I mean, probably, but he got there first. And our commander, any opportunity to get in a ship. I love a callback. I love a
running gag.
Yeah. Any opportunity to get in a ship, he pretty much does it. So he's a hands-on kind of guy.
Try and stop him.
And I really love knowing that the perm curl will be back 300 years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's reassuring, life comes full circle. Life finds a way. If you're not curly, hey, there's still options. It still looks terrible, but you can also still get it. This poor reporter. They clearly, you know what? She's probably came at the same time as the Spirit of the 90s. Like they put out a Miller Lite and he popped up and then she came like 30 minutes later.
Looking for him.
And they were like...
I felt the call.
They were like, oh, is that the female Spirit of the 90s? Can we give her a role? I mean, we have summoned her. We got to put her in something. She even has the brown matte lipstick on later, which is like a very 90s. Anyway, it's a thing. If Earth Force Public Relations hadn't sent this interview up months ago, I would say that he doesn't want to be interviewed by Interstellar Network News. And Garibaldi is like, what? No. What? No. What? No, he absolutely wants to be interviewed by you. I mean, God, who wouldn't want to be? I love your broadcast, is what he say. And he does an eye rake that's a little...
I'm not sure if this was supposed to be... I'm not sure if the intention with this gesture was for him to do like a look down and up her body after he said, I really enjoy your broadcasts.
Well, that's what he do though.
Well,
Okay.
he doesn't really do a down and up. He does like a down and then looks at the root that he's holding. So I was conflicted on whether he's trying to like gross her out.
Yeah.
By this blatant, I really like your broadcasts. And I like what I'm seeing right now.
I think it just...
Or if it's, I really like your broadcasts, let me look at this thing I'm holding in my hand.
Suggestively. I really, just in keeping with the overall Garibaldi theme, you want to come to my quarters and see my second favorite thing in the universe? Okay. Do you want to come see my favorite thing in the universe? Okay. My second favorite thing. It's a very like, I really enjoy your broadcasts. It's a very like open-ended. Let's leave it as open-ended for her to be able to take it as like, I really like your broadcasts or I really like you. And we'll just leave it there. And it's fine. It fits with the Garibaldi character. I'm not implying that he's lascivious. Although he's a lech. And like he's riding the line. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
Whereas a woman, if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, oh, okay. Don't be alone with you. Got it. Okay.
Thank you for letting me know.
And she kind of pushes back with, does he not know that this is an event? Because after he says the broadcast thing is when he talks about the route. Mm-hmm. And then she goes, does he not know that this is an event? This is the second anniversary of Babylon 5 going online. Lloyd's of London gave it 500 to 1 against for surviving 1 year, and it's been here for 2 years. And then she pauses, probably so that Garibaldi will insert something, but he's just stands there, which is a great technique. And finally she goes, where's the bathroom? And he's like, third door on your left. So she turns to walk past him and he's like, other way. And then he goes, oh yeah, the door with the blue markers for methane breathers. I'd stay out of there if I was you. And that's it. And then he looks down at the guy and he's like, oh, what the hell? And he hands him his credit card and then he gets the root that he's holding.
If this leaves a waxy residue on anything, I'm coming back.
That's exactly. And then he turns and leaves, which means not only is she so lost she doesn't know where the bathroom is, but then he just ditches her. Right. And then we cut to Stephen, because wouldn't you know it, Stephen Franklin is going to be in this episode. And I neglected it to mention, but this guy died really young. Like he died in his 40s, the guy who plays Stephen. And he actually had partial hearing loss.
Huh?
I think, yeah, exactly. My sister is deaf, which is why I will probably make comments about the subtitles soon, because these subtitles on the Blu-ray are a travesty. A fucking travesty. You do not paraphrase for subtitles. That is not how fucking subtitles work. I don't need the gist of what they're saying. I need word for word what they are saying on the subtitles. Right. That is how subtitles work.
It's a normal thing.
It has to be a normal thing.
In anime, the subtitles are usually a very literal translation of the Japanese into English. But then when they actually do the dub, they change the words so that the English words match the mouth movements of the characters as closely as possible, right? So it's normal in the world of anime to get
dubbing,
right, to get a big difference in a paraphrase, a paraphrase of the words in the subtitles. But there's no reason why the actual subtitles on the Blu-ray haven't been meticulously
and on Tubi,
assembled.
They're fine. On Tubi, they are word for word.
I bet Tubi uses open subtitles.
On my Blu-ray release that I paid actual fucking money for, they are not word for word, and I am not happy. It's an interesting perspective having grown up with subtitles, because my sister is 11 years older than me. So we have always had caption. We had a caption machine before caption machines were built into TVs. And for a long time, a lot of things were not captioned at all. And now a lot of them are, or they're AI-generated captions. And for a while, there was a sweet spot where we were getting captions on almost everything, and they were great, and they were accurate, and they were perfect because
Right,
they were
and even for live stuff, they had a stenographer
who was
who would
typing them up.
who would type them out live.
Yeah, and they might have a couple second delay, but they were correct as much as possible, and they were there. Now we have moved to AI for a lot of them, where they're auto-generating them.
The speech to text.
And can I say that the quality has decreased significantly?
Yep.
And it just makes me mad because disability discrimination is so ubiquitous that we don't even see it. Like if my sister is watching a show and they just put the little, if you're ever watching the subtitles, sometimes for a song, they'll just put a music note in brackets.
Yeah.
That makes her irrationally angry. She's like, do I not deserve to know the lyrics to the song?
Right, that's especially a problem when the lyrics of the song are relevant to the story.
Right. It's a
There's
thing.
no excuse.
There's no excuse for
Well,
that.
the only excuse is, we didn't want to spend money on it.
Who did those subtitles? There are people. This show has been out for 30 years. It has had captions for about that long, if not a significant portion of that time. You couldn't have gone back. Whoever did the Tubi subtitles, you couldn't have got them. They're fine. They're great. No excuse. I don't want to bring the tone down, but like, oh my fucking God. Type out the whole thing, right? I know it's a joke. Oh, everybody uses subtitles now, which is fine. It's fine. I love the normalization of using subtitles. Because for a long time in my life, I've used subtitles and nobody liked it. Oh, I can't engage with the material if there's subtitles on. Okay, well, I need them. I grew up with them. I rely on them. My entire life, the TV has had subtitles. To the point where I can't hear what anybody's saying if there's no subtitles, which is one of my favorite games is, did I not like that movie or did I see it in the theaters and there were no subtitles? That happens sometimes. But anyway.
Or did I not like that book or did I just listen to the audiobook?
That's another one. They used to have movies, like we used to go to movies that had subtitles on the screen. That was a thing that used to be offered. And then they had this thing called the rear window captioning method, where they would have these LEDs on the back wall that would project. They would put up the subtitles in like a mirror image. My sister had this thing where she had to put the cup holder, this thing
like a
in her
flexible
cup
arm
holder
with a piece of
dark glass.
Yeah.
And she had to put it up in front of the screen. She's like, well, now they're dark and now they're even darker. And like, I can't even see what's happening on the screen in order to read the subtitles. It doesn't have to be dark
glass.
And then they went to Google Glasses, and half of the time they don't work. And a lot of times now they don't even offer those. So they're just gone completely from the movie theaters. So anyway, there's my soapbox. I'm going to put it away now. But just be aware of what is happening for the deaf community in terms of subtitles now that we are relying on cheaper methods of subtitling things, and it has created an overall drop in quality in subtitles.
Yeah.
Which is...
Yeah, and not just for the deaf community. Anybody that is hard of hearing.
Anybody. Like if I had to... Yeah, well, that's deaf and hard of hearing. The community. Capital D deaf. You have to capitalize it. It's fine. It's like the deaf community. Anyway, I just want to... And I just, contact you. Write that down. Write that down. It's a problem. Anyway... I put that down like 4 times in these notes because I was this episode in particular was really bad. Especially at the end where everybody's talking really fast. They were cutting off like the whole first or second sentence of what everybody was saying and just giving you a synopsis of what they were talking about. So after Garibaldi buys his maybe floor wax, maybe aphrodisiac, we come back after the intro. We get our intro. We come back and it's Stephen Franklin. And he's like, hey, can somebody hand me my tweezers? I don't remember what he asks for. He's like, I got this RNA right where I want it.
Why is he, I guess on an alien, when you're working with aliens, having to do genetic analysis stuff on the regular makes more sense.
Well, and he's done, because not him actually, but we know that this is the thing they're capable of, because remember when they have to make the antidote for the Vorlon guy, and they're like, well, we have to change one particular...
Right, when you have to synthesize or customize things for specific patients or species,
But wherever his aide is, she is like left, and she never
walks out right before he asks.
and she never comes back for the entirety of the episode. Maybe he laid her off. I don't know. But his friend walks in and he's like, "Get it yourself." And Steven's like, "Oh, my uppity British professor, is that you?" And he's like, "Hello, Steven. I had to come and see my favorite student, and I'm here to offer you the biggest adventure you've ever had." And Steven's like, "Adventure?"
What kind of adventure?
And in my head, it sounds like the guy from She-Ra, the new She-Ra on Netflix, the one guy that's like, "Adventure?"
Oh, yeah.
Adventure. And he's like, "Oh, no, I'm not going to explain anything. I want you to savor the mystery. Also, if I explain literally anything, you'll ask me questions. And if you ask me questions, my entire narrative will fall apart. So savor
Pretty
the
much.
mystery, Steven."
Pretty much.
That's what he says. And then we come to the customs officer. And there's only one of them. And there's no security. And there's no security cameras. And there's
no formal customs procedure.
There's no additional staff. Theoretically, these might be organic materials that will then have to go in quarantine, but all of them are interacting with them unsuited. The owner of the quarantinable material is present for what is happening.
Right? They don't do any kind of scan. Dr. Franklin puts one of these things on a scanner later, and I was like, "Oh, it's organic."
Immediately he's like, "Oh, it's organic. We don't have those. We don't even have like a
customs requires that organic material be quarantined for 48 hours.
Yeah.
But they don't do a scan for organic material.
They rely entirely on reporting.
Self-reporting, yeah.
It's like when you go through customs now and they give you that sheet of paper that's like, "Do you have stuff with you?" And you're like, No, I have nothing. Didn't you come with one suitcase and now you have 2 suitcases? Yeah, it had a baby, a non-organic baby that is not fruit or meat or produce. And it has $0 worth of cash value.
I am definitely not crossing any border with an entire trunk full of snacks.
I have nothing with me. Thank you for asking.
That is a thing that has never happened.
Never.
No one's ever done it.
Ever. I've never, ever, ever come back from Canada with an entire trunk full of food and gone, "Do you have food with you?" No, I do not. In fact, I didn't, because nobody asked me if I had food, so I didn't have to say no.
I got asked if I had firearms.
Yeah, and weed.
But that's probably, weed.
Cannabis.
Yeah.
One time, nobody even asked me. Oh, when we dropped the kids off. And
Yeah.
they were like, "You just
They asked
crossed
us
the
where
border.
we were going.
You just crossed the border 9 hours ago." Matt's like, "We dropped the kids off." They were like, "You have a great weekend." And we just went through the customs. Anyway.
Yeah, and then on the way back, it was like, "Oh, we dropped the kids off.
Yeah.
Now we're picking them up. All right.
All right, have a
good
great day. But he's like, no, my single customs officer who has no video surveillance. This is rife for bribery too, right? Like, he could have just handed him some credits. He didn't even need to kill this man. He could have been like, "How about $1 million? How about $100,000? I mean, if the guy was then not bribable, he could have killed him.
Right.
But he's just like, "Oh, no, it's pottery and stonework." And the guy's like, "Oh, that's really funny because this box is bigger on the outside than it is on the inside." And this guy, who we later learned is Nelson, is like, "What?" And then he just kills the man. He grabs him by the neck and then he tases him in the back. And then he closes his eyes as this guy is sliding down off of him.
But it's not just a taser. It's like a defibrillator.
Yeah. It's a moment.
It's specifically designed to mess with your heart.
It looks exactly like a taser. But
yeah,
it's like a pocket defibrillator. Defibrillator. And then after the intro, it is Sinclair and Garibaldi, because they immediately find this body. Not only did this guy kill him, he just left him on the floor and was like, "Well, you have a great day." And you know why? Because there's no surveillance. Who cares?
And okay, for checking in, like as a ship checking into the station, there should be some type of tracking somewhere in the logistics software system, whatever. A ship arrived. People came aboard.
Yeah.
Here's their customs status.
Yeah.
they entered customs investigation, then they need an authorized person to like sign off on it. Yes.
Yeah.
They were signed off on their customs.
You mean they should have
Ingress.
known who he was talking to when he died?
There should be a dangling customs record that, oh, this guy Vance and Nelson, whatever,
Yeah.
they entered customs, like inspection. They're still in the pending inspection status, but they're gone.
Is this because this is the human customs area?
Maybe.
I'm not saying Babylon 5 would be like that, but the Earth government, as we will learn, is becoming more and more xenophobic.
And we've seen a customs area before.
Yeah, where they caught the dust guy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's for passengers. There's oversight for passengers, but
but-
cargo?
But Vance and Nelson had their own ship.
Yeah.
They weren't on a chartered ship.
No. So they landed, they attempted to offload cargo. This guy was like, hold the
They
phone.
went through the service entrance.
They did. And there was one guy there who was just standing there and he was like, I gotta look at
One
your shit.
person who works solo.
He was like, I gotta look at your shit. And they were like, okay, here's
And
our
they
shit.
don't do
and he
any
was
kind
like,
of tracking.
he was like, your shit's hinky. And they were like, what? And then they killed him. And that's literally what happened.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's fine. This episode is strong otherwise. So, hey, they maybe need to hire somebody to overhaul their customs procedure and maybe need to put some cameras. We know they have remote cameras. They have the little floaty ones.
Yep.
One would assume you would have a camera in the customs area just to make sure everything stays above board and so that you can check in case, somebody turns up dead or anything like that and you need to find information about it.
So then you have a picture of every person and every item that came into the station.
I wonder if it might not be a little bit like in Dune, where smuggling is expected. And
so they have some means of doing smuggling that has some amount of oversight.
Right. It's easier to regulate the smuggling than it is to prevent the smuggling.
We actually addressed that in the book Wind and Truth.
Oh, do we? Well, we're not going to talk
there's a
about Wind and
situation
Truth,
there.
are we? Because that's spoilers and Rachel hasn't read it yet.
It's going to come up one more time.
Okay. All right. Well, for the rest of us who haven't slogged through 7,000 pages of text to get to that book yet, we're not going to talk about anything spoiler-like, are we? Anyway, we come back. Sinclair and Garibaldi somebody found this body, and the commander and the chief of security came to go investigate it. And Stephen Franklin is standing there because it was a high-profile enough case that they felt like Stephen need to come and look at this body. And he literally looks at it and goes, yeah, it looks like natural causes.
Natural causes, of course.
Yeah, he's like,
Heart attack.
No, he choked and tased himself internally. It's a heart attack. Yeah, it's a heart attack. And it just brings up the question, did anybody check Stephen's medical degree when he came on board? They were just like, Stephen. And he's like, yes, Stephen, that is me.
Dr. Stephen Franklin.
And he's like, doctor, correct. Yes. No, that is definitely, this guy could be like,
have you heard of RNA? Wow, this guy knows about RNA.
whoa, this guy knows his shit.
And then he wipes his forehead. Whew, all I know is the word RNA.
Because he's real quick to be like, no, yeah, that's, you know what it ends up feeling like? Like this is beneath him. He's like, I don't know, a heart attack. And they're like, okay. And Garibaldi goes, that's funny because his employment jacket doesn't say anything about a pre-existing heart condition. It's a young guy in a world with very advanced medical technology who died of a heart attack and has no pre-existing notation about having a heart condition. And
and he's probably gotten his semi-annual checkup, physical.
He probably just got a physical to get this job.
Mm-hmm.
In order to be in Earth Force, in order to work on a space station, to make sure he had no conditions that were going to interfere with his ability to work on a space station. And Stephen Franklin, Dr. Franklin, is like, oh, that's funny. What medical school did you attend? That was uncalled for. And Stephen Franklin is going to improve, but in my opinion, he is always a little bit obnoxiously ambitious. And that's fine. It makes him an interesting character. Not every character can be beloved. Some characters can just be good characters because they're just that little bit asshole. And Stephen Franklin is just that little bit asshole. And Garibaldi's like, oh, yeah, no, I didn't go to a medical school, but like that's literally my job is to ask clarifying questions. One of us is doing our job here. Can you guess which one it is? Oh, wait, that'd be me.
Garibaldi never does his job.
Yeah, he does. He's doing it right now. He doesn't need to because he immediately got the lay of the land on this. He was like, oh, I get it. You don't give a shit. Okay. Heard. Gotcha. And Dr. Franklin's like, okay, well, I'm going back to medical bay to do like important stuff, not this. So I'm going to send him to my techs and they'll do an autopsy. And like, I'm sure they're going to do a great job. I'm not going to be there to watch them or
There are other doctors on this station.
I'm not going to check in on this process at all. I'm not going to make sure that this is done.
I know why. I have a headcanon why Dr. Franklin is not interested.
Okay.
Dr. Franklin is not a human doctor.
Oh, he's not.
He's an alien doctor.
He's going to have some really interesting plot lines, and we're going to have a lot of fun talking about him. Yes.
As flaws of a character
got flaws.
Make the character.
Yes.
And Dr. Stephen Franklin has flaws.
There are some borderline flawless characters that we're going to meet in Babylon 5. And in fact, they get a little bit of flack for being pretty flawless. Too perfect. I have neither a problem with the too perfect character in fiction nor the flawed character in fiction. I think both can be done well. But Stephen Franklin is definitely one of the biggest bundles of, wow, this guy's complicated. Yeah. Not in a, I have a tragic backstory, but in a, I maybe don't have, he has a very good, and you know what he is? He's a research doctor. He's not a people doctor. Yeah. Have you ever had one of those doctors where you're like, wow, your bedside manner fucking sucks? Right. Like, you're terrible. I really don't want you in here talking to me ever again, but I wouldn't mind having you do surgery because I feel like you would know what you were doing. Right. That's Dr. Franklin. He's not your bedside manner guy. He shouldn't be the chief doctor. He should be the specialist doctor. He may be there to tackle problems of new alien physiology. Yeah. Where if you have an alien about which we don't have a lot of information and they present with a problem, he might be the guy that you take them to and go like, fix them, I don't know. Like we did with Soul Hunter, where they were like, yeah, we got nothing. And he worked on that guy exclusively. He never touches this case ever again. Right. He's just like... He's a human doctor third. Yeah. Yeah, he's a research doctor. He's a xenobiologist. Right. That's his specialty. So that's what And it makes sense for him to be the top dog in the medical department on Babylon 5. Yeah. But to bring him a human and say, tell me what's wrong, that's, outside of his wheelhouse a bit. Right. But there's probably a lot of human doctors available. So you gotta have specialists. Right. And so Stephen Franklin just happens to be the specialist, not on being a good people doctor in this particular episode. Yeah. Yeah. So he returns to medbay and Vance is waiting for him and he's like, oh my God, sorry, that took like fucking 10 minutes out of our moment, like our day here. Like, oh my God, someone died. It was super inconvenient, but I'm back now. And Vance is like, oh, I want to introduce you to my assistant, Nelson. Not Dr. Nelson, not another name, just Nelson. And Nelson looks like the kind of guy who just goes by Nelson. Yeah. Yeah. He looks like he could be played by Roddy Piper. Any character that I'm like, oh, you could probably... Does this guy look like the kind of man who would trim his eyelashes to look less feminine? Yes. To do some performative masculinity. That's exactly what he looks like. You've been saving that one up. We actually missed his name the first time through, and I was like, what is his name? And it's like, I don't know. And I was like, let's just call him Lunk. I did rewind it so that I could figure out his name, and it's Nelson. But I also think he could go by Lunk, and no one would care because he's not even really a character.
It would not affect the plot.
He is a vehicle for the plot. His purpose is to kill the guy at the beginning and then to become the Terminator, and that's pretty much it.
Or Mega Man.
Or Mega Man. Matt was like, Mega Man, he's got a gun on one arm. That's true. But Mega Man's a good guy. The blue Mega Man that you play in the video game is the good guy, but doesn't he have like...
Oh, yeah, there's lots of other
There's
ones.
other Mega Mans, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Vance introduces his assistant, Nelson, and then he's like, okay, so glad you're back. I'm in a rush to figure this all out. And Steven is like, aren't you an archaeologist? Isn't everything you study already dead? How can you possibly be in a rush? So Vance is like, yeah, this is Stephen Franklin that I've told you so much about. He's one of my best students. And Steven looks over at him like, quit bullshitting. And Vance goes, in the area of alien history, anatomy, and culture. He specifies. He's one of my best students in this specific discipline. And Nelson's like, nice to meet you.
Hi, my name's Jeff.
I'm Nelson. He's like, nice to meet you. I heard about you all the way from Ikara 7. The entire purpose of that line, and I think it might actually be his only line, is to say the name Ikara 7 so that Steven can go, Ikara 7? Isn't that a dead world? And Vance can be like, yeah, I've been there on a dig. And Steven is like, dig? And then he looks over at the containers that are covered in dirt. And I want to address this for a second.
Clean your shit.
Okay, first of all, I get it. They're from an archaeological dig. You can tell because they're dirty. But also, if there's containment procedures for organic material.
Would the soil of a world with its own life forms not count as organic material?
Correct. It just...
Maybe it was sterile. The outside of the containers was sterilized.
Maybe. I mean, do you want an alien plague? Because that's how you get an alien plague. That's all I'm saying.
Vance even says to Franklin later, there's a Martian warship outside that would like to have a word with you about the common cold.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just to get him, to break him out of his thing.
That's just to get his attention. But
no, nobody hosed that shit down. Nobody was like, no, you got to leave the dirt on there. That makes it authentic.
He won't believe me if these containers are too clean.
And I just love that we watch a lot of 90s TV. And we can literally go to space, and we cannot escape the evil archaeological find trope.
Yeah.
This is how Forever Night starts, is with an archaeological dig. This is
how the plot of Murderbot gets complicated.
This is like Native American mysticism. We had to have it. You had to have Native American mysticism. You had to have a comet episode where we were all going to die and we had to confront our own mortality, but it's not actually going to happen. And then we had to have the, oh no, we unearthed something terrible that should have stayed buried. These are required. And we can go ahead and check this box off because guess what? This is about an archaeological find that should have stayed buried.
Yep.
So Vance is like, Nelson, show him what we brought. So Nelson opens the compartments. And up in the command dome, they're like, oh my God, there was an energy spike. And it's three little people. It's not, Ivanova's not involved in this. It's the three people that are always sitting in the middle and she's always shouting at them and they'll turn and go, yes, Commander. And that's literally their entire job. They get lines this time and it's really fun for them because they're like, hey, there was an energy spike, but it was really fast. It could have even been a malfunction in my console. And they're like, oh no, you should probably run a diagnostic on your console. And I postulate, why not both?
Yeah.
Why not go check out the energy surge and also run a diagnostic on your console? Two things can be true.
Mm-hmm.
But then we go back and Vance is like, oh yeah, I was on a dig for interplanetary expeditions, which just sounds like the Acme Corporation.
Yes.
I was on, for the spaceship shipbuilding company.
Spaceships Unlimited.
And we found these sealed in a vault and it took us months to dig them out. Oh my God. I don't know why they sealed them so tightly. there's probably not a reason. It's probably fine.
They were trying to keep things out, not keep things in.
I mean, obviously. So that's why we had to get in there and get them out. We liberated these. And Steven is like, but that's a dead world. Akara 7 is a dead world. And Vance is like, yeah, but was it always? Which is honestly the best part of Murderbot is that they find alien technology and alien remnants, and nobody asks about the aliens. They're all just concerned with their commercial potential. And that's all I could think about during this, because in Murderbot, it's illegal to...
Oh, yeah. The corporations don't even want to deal with the alien stuff for the most part.
No, I mean, they do as long as they don't have to declare it or anything.
But they still get cagey about it.
Yeah.
Even in the Galactic Corporation or whatever they call it.
The corporation.
It
has a name, but Murderbot changes it.
Even within all these hyper-capitalist entities, most of the corporations / organizations are like, we want none of that shit. The alien remnants, no, they are too dangerous.
You don't know what they could do.
There's a couple of them that are like, we want the alien remnants because we could extract economic potential out of them.
Yeah.
We could exploit some technological advances or whatever, maybe. But for the most part, no. Like there's the research people, and they're like, ooh, alien remnants. We will look at them from afar. But that's as close as anybody gets to let me hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're mint condition artifacts, Matthew. Look at them. They're
1,000 years old.
They don't have a chip
Jinx.
or a whatever. They're fine. I thank you. I heard you. You know how many times I get jinxed in a day? I have an 8 and a 10-year-old. You can't touch me. And Vance is like, I don't know what they are. I don't know what they do. That's why we need you. And then he's like, put them in the medical scanner. So Steven puts them in the medical scanner, which implies that Vance already knew what they were going to find. But it's fine. And I wanted him to be like, okay, but why not put them in my artifact scanner? I got that. It's more specialized.
Yeah. Dr. Franklin's like, why is this of any interest to me? Yes, I loved taking like courses with you to learn about alien cultures and shit.
Yeah.
Why would I be interested in these artifacts?
Right.
I don't care. I care about living things.
And he's like, put them in the scanner. So he puts them in the scanner.
In the scanner, Steven.
And he's like, oh my God, it's organic technology, like living ships. That's fucking sweet. And Steven's like, why didn't you come to me? Come like right away. You could have come right away and we could have already been looking at this. And he's like, I did. Like I literally just got off the ship and I walked here from the cargo area. And Steven's like, oh, what about the...
Hold on a sec.
What about the 48-hour quarantine? And he's like, oh, it was quarantined on the other end.
Nelson took care of it.
It's okay. Yeah. Don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it.
Just don't worry about it.
And Steven's like, okay. All right. Bought. Sold. I will not worry about it. I have no question, no further questions, Your Honor.
Dr. Franklin has too much trust in the system.
Does he, or did he not want?
Both.
Both. Because Vance continues his sales pitch. He's like, we could have living technology just like the Vorlons and just like we think the Minbari do. And Stephen Franklin, you are a geneticist and a xenobiologist. You are like tailor-made to be the one that goes over these with me. And Stephen's like, yeah, but there's better facilities on Earth. Like, I'm the best xenobiologist, but I'm not the only xenobiologist. And Vance is like, yeah, but I trust you and your desire to be famous. Like, I know you're going to.
I know you have ambitions.
Yeah, I know you're thirsty. I know you want this. And I know you're going to keep it under wraps so that we can have this together because I know you want to have your name go down in history. Because you told me since you were a student that you wanted your name to go down in history, just like Fleming and Salk and Jenner and Takahashi. And we looked him up so you don't have to. Fleming is the guy that found penicillin. Salk is the guy that invented the polio vaccine. Jenner is the guy that did the smallpox vaccine. And Takahashi is either the guy who invented mammalian cloning or the guy who invented the chickenpox vaccine. Considering the theme, I'm going to say it's probably the Takahashi that invented the chickenpox vaccine.
Right.
Which means the chickenpox vaccine was available in 1993.
That's a very good point.
Which means I didn't have to have chickenpox. Although I think I had them by 93.
Yeah, I had them before 93.
We grew up in the era of chickenpox parties. Oh, your kid has chickenpox? Bring your kids over. We'll go ahead and make sure they're all infected.
We'll bring them home and they can take a bath in oatmeal.
Yeah. I got Bengay.
I had an oatmeal bath.
I got Bengay, but on all of my spots. And now I get to have shingles. Isn't that fun?
Yay.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mom. Oh, I want everybody to know.
It may not have been a parent decision. It may have been just in the medical establishment. The chickenpox vaccine wasn't
the culture was you only get chickenpox
spread.
once, so just go ahead and get it over with. Because
Right.
if you get it as an adult, it's serious. If you get it as a kid, you're going to be fine. So go ahead and get your kid to have chickenpox, then they're done for life. That was the theory. And fun fact, that's also why my sister's deaf. So, hey! Anyway.
She didn't have a chance to get the vaccine, though.
No, she's 11 years older than me. So by 1993, she's way too old to be a kid with chickenpox.
Hold on, let's see what year the Takahashi chickenpox vaccine was. In 1984, the vaccine was certified by the WHO. And in 1986, the Japanese Ministry of Health and Welfare approved it for practical use.
Okay. My sister still would have had chickenpox, but I didn't necessarily
I
have
didn't
to.
have to have chickenpox.
It's cool. My son likes to watch Home Alone 3. And Home Alone 3 is the first direct-to-video Home Alone 3.
Yeah.
And he has chickenpox and he has to stay home.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to explain chickenpox because my kids will never get chickenpox. They don't know anyone who's ever had chickenpox yet.
Well, they don't know any of their peers that have ever had
even their older
chickenpox.
cousins have never had chickenpox.
Yeah.
So congratulations. We are part of that. You remember the smallpox scar on our parents' arms?
Shingles is going to be the
That's going to be
smallpox
us.
scar
That's
of
going to be us.
millennials.
You're going to be like, oh my God, did you have chickenpox as a kid? That's crazy. That's crazy.
Wow, you must be one of the last people to have ever gotten chickenpox.
My mom remembers getting the polio vaccine, which was invented by Salk, which we listed in the thing.
Yeah.
She said they put it on a sugar cube.
So in these future sci-fi shows,
Yeah.
when they go back and say, oh, just like the historical well-known people, A, B, C, and D, A, B, and C are real, and D is always
usually
made
D's
up.
made up. Yeah, but no.
And so we checked the names because we wanted to know which one is the made-up one. Because they want to
Like
imply,
the San
it's
Francisco
been
bombing.
300 years.
Yeah, like the terrorist at San Francisco bombing or
Right.
what. Yeah,
Yeah,
same
it's
thing.
been 300 years since the day of the viewer and when the setting of the show. They need to fill in the history.
Yeah, no.
Significant events are going to happen in 300 years. So they need to throw out some names and events and whatever.
Nah.
But not in the medical
No.
history.
No.
There have been no significant enough medical advances
You know what they didn't list?
in the next 300 years.
You know what they didn't list? A guy that proved that vaccines cause autism. Isn't that funny?
Well,
Almost as if
he got in a lot of trouble.
that was a lie. And that guy
Yeah.
got a lot of fines.
Yeah.
He should. He caused the death of a lot of people. Anyway, that was our political statement for the entire episode. As if this entire
Yes,
series is an episode.
absolutely. This will be the only controversial political statement we will make.
Hey, you're watching Babylon 5. It's tit for tat. So Stephen Franklin is going to spend the entire rest of the episode investigating these artifacts
Instead of doing his
his
job.
buddy Vance. And I want somebody to be like, what is it you say you do here? What is it you say you do here? This is a 250,000 humans and aliens wrapped in 5,000, whatever, however,
Yeah.
the opening thing. There's 250,000 people on this space station. Nobody needs to visit the urgent care for.
Well, okay. So the urgent care would have medical staff.
Yeah. Medbay 4,
But
apparently.
anybody that needs specialist care would probably go to Dr.
So
Franklin.
no one needs specialist care.
So if a person in a leadership position can spend all of their time doing something else other than their day job, then they must not be actually impactful to the operation of the organization that they belong to.
It's funny because we said we weren't going to make any more political statements.
What?
This entire
No, we're just
I make no promises.
we're just
Yep.
elucidating the themes of the show.
Right. Well, in the meantime, Nelson gets zapped by one of the things. He opens it. He's like, "Look at the pretty box." And he opens it, and he's like,
Oh, this one opens.
Oh, there's light in it, and it zaps him. And they're like, "Why is he the one that gets zapped?" And they're like, "Because he's willing to kill." And I think he's just like his IQ threshold is low enough. That they're like,
It needs to be able to take over the person's brain.
yeah, and this was fine. He was like, "I sense no resistance here. This will be perfectly fine." And he doesn't report it because he's like, "Look, it makes my skin pretty. I'm gonna look tan all the time now." And then we go to Sinclair and Garibaldi and Ivanova, and they are in the command dome area.
Cool Kids Club.
Yeah, the Cool Kids Club up in the it's the end of the day's shift, getting ready for the night shift. Ivanova really should be heading off, but she's waiting around because they've been having weird electrical anomalies, and she's waiting for one to pop up
Energy
so she can
spikes.
see what's going on. And Garibaldi's like, "So did the unpaid intern do the autopsy yet? Is that a thing that happened?" And Garibaldi's like, "Yeah, Medbay 4, like MedLab 4 techs they're still saying it's natural causes." Like the med students that have 6 months of autopsy experience, they're like, no, it definitely looks like a heart attack. And I'm just thinking, shouldn't murders...
ChatGPT medical examiner.
Shouldn't they have some kind of murder, It's fine. I just feel like Stephen Franklin should be involved in any type of murder on the state. Any unnatural seeming death.
Mysterious.
Any mysterious death should be treated because there could be a serial killer on the station.
Right. Especially in customs.
Right. In customs. It's fine. It's fine. Ivanova's like, "Yeah, okay. So anyway, you remember your interview is tomorrow at 11. But Sinclair is like, yeah, okay. I don't want to do that." He looks not thrilled about the interview. And Garibaldi goes, "It's going to be fun. Why sweat it?" And Sinclair says, "The last time they told me, just speak my mind. And the next day I was transferred so far off the map, you couldn't find me with a hunting dog and a Ouija board."
Oh, just a reminder, your interview's scheduled for 1100 hours tomorrow.
Swell. Which reminds me, she's waiting for me down in the Zocalo. It'll be fun, so why are you ducking her?
The last time I gave an interview, they told me to just relax and say what I really felt. 10 minutes after the broadcast, I got transferred to an outpost so far off the star maps you couldn't find it with a hunting dog and a Ouija board.
Don't sweat it. Just be that charming, effervescent commander we've all come to know and love. What's the worst that can happen? They fire you, ship you off to the rim, and I get promoted to commander. I don't see a problem here.
How sharper than a serpent's tooth.
So Garibaldi goes, "Just be the commander, the effervescent commander we all know and love. Besides, if you get ousted, I get to become commander, so I don't see the problem." And Sinclair goes, "How sharper than a serpent's tooth," which is a quote from King Lear, by the way. I was like, oh, it sounds like Shakespeare. And you looked it up. Sure enough, it is. And the whole quote is, "How sharper than a serpent's tooth is to have a thankless child."
So he's calling Garibaldi an ingrateful child.
Yes.
Yeah. So not every interviewer, but any interviewer.
Anyone who hears the interview too, depending on what he says in the interview.
Yeah.
So Dr. Franklin and Vance are still hard at work. And Vance is like, "Wow, all this technology and there's no clock." And this is when he's like, "Steven, there's a Martian war machine outside. They want to talk to you about the common cold," because Steven's clearly not listening. And Steven goes,
This happens with me and Rachel a lot.
Well, I don't make ridiculous statements. I just
No,
walk
no,
over and...
I make the ridiculous statements. You are head down in something, and it takes you a minute to respond.
Yeah, but
literally.
I do respond to exactly what you said because I'm listening. I'm just not processing in real time. And he goes, tell them to make an appointment. Because he's listening. He's just not responding.
Yeah.
And Dr. Franklin's like, so
He
we're
declined
just...
to be disrupted.
He's like, so what are we going to do? What's the plan with all of this? Which, bold for you to ask that 15 hours after you started researching this stuff.
So when this guy showed up and he was like, oh, it's actually organic. Wow. In all of my technical project experience,
Yeah.
you convince somebody that, okay, here's the premise. Here's now you're interested. You are convinced that this is something worth spending time on. Now we're actually going to discuss at an abstract level what the other context is.
Yeah.
The other stuff that Vance already knows about these artifacts. And, okay, just off the cuff, what are some ideas that you have had about how this could be used? What are your expectations for the outcomes of this endeavor that we're about to do? Just to make sure we're on the same page.
Right.
And then, okay, now that I've made sure my expectations are aligned with your expectations, now we can dive in and do some technical analysis work. Otherwise, Franklin may go off on a tangent, and Vance, hours later, now Vance is like, that's not at all what I was interested in looking into with these things. We should have talked about this beforehand to make sure that you just go into this, with my interests already explained.
You're
to
expecting Vance to be a project manager. He's not a project manager. He's manipulating a subject matter expert.
Right. He's we'll get it in a minute.
Yeah. So my only real caveat there is if I walked up to you and I was like, I have a problem with this thing, and I handed you the thing, you'd be 4 hours into fixing the thing before you were like, what are you going to use this for?
Maybe not. It depends.
If the problem was interesting enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honey, you once took 12 hours trying to erase a 2-pixel black bar on the right-hand side of a screen.
But I had a reason to do it.
So did Steven, honey. He had a goal in mind, and it was to figure out how this organic... He did. He was like, I want to crack how this works so that we can have our own technology like this. And he was like, cool, heard. That's exactly what I would also like to figure out how this works. And this is when he's like, hold on, though. When we do figure out how it works, are you just going to... What are you going to do with it? Are you really just going to make a secondary patent and then make a boatload of money? Is that really your only plan, Vance? What did you think he was going to do with it? I don't know what he... Well, he may be thinking of him as the professor who is seeking truth and information for truth and information's sake.
Right. For the betterment of mankind and shared knowledge, whatever.
This is when we have a conversation that makes a little bit of sense, but also doesn't make a ton of sense, where he's like, damn it, Vance, you're an archaeologist. Why are you scouring dead worlds? Is that not what an archaeologist does? Is that not what they do? He's like, you found this thing and now you're just going to figure out how it works and then you're going to use it?
I don't think the objection was digging around in dead worlds. I think the objection was you dig around in dead worlds, you find something interesting, and then your primary focus is to then sell it to somebody.
I think
rather than investigate it and research it.
I think this is intended to highlight the difference in purpose, where Stephen is interested in researching this for the purpose of learning how it works.
Right.
For scientific reasons. Just to know how a thing like this would work.
For the knowledge.
Rather
than Vance, who just wants to know enough about it to convince somebody to pay him more for it.
Right. It's the difference between someone who invents an electric car because they want to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and a person who invents an electric car because they can sell it for more than a regular car and make a boatload of money. And it really leads to the question, the interesting question and the unanswerable question, really, of where is the line between knowledge and art and creation and profit motivation?
Commercialism. Yeah.
Commercialism. And there's no way to answer that question, because you should be able to make money doing the things that you love. And if it's the thing that you love is learning for the sake of learning and then sharing that knowledge with other people, there should be a way for you to live your life while doing that. And I think that that's kind of what they were skating up against, because he's like, dude, who even funded your expedition? I looked up interplanetary expeditions and they're like not a thing. And he's like, do you know how much it costs to have an off-world excavation? Do you know the money, like the money gate?
Right. More than a professor makes in their entire life.
There's literally no way for a university to fund off-world expeditions for information.
How can you expect them to throw money at off-world expeditions when the football team needs to be funded? Not to mention the baseball team.
Nobody cares about baseball. Anyway, he's like, I can't. The only way for us to be able to go out and do this is profit motive, is having a corporation do it. And Stephen is like, I don't know. Corporate funding of expeditions to plunder dead worlds kind of feels like grave robbing.
Granted, this may be important, but you wouldn't have created it. You just found it. It's a shortcut. Frankly, I'm a little uncomfortable about corporations financing expeditions to alien worlds so they can steal whatever technology they have. Feels a little like grave robbing.
Hint, it's grave robbing.
Correct. It feels like it because it is. That's because it is. And
I feel like Franklin should have said something like, well, why aren't you wearing a badge from your corporate sponsor?
Right. Like, yeah.
They bought you.
Like NASCAR, where they have to wear their sponsors on their shirt. Exactly. Yeah. It's an interesting thing that we bring up, and we don't solve it, of course, because there's no real solution, but it's like, you want the nice artifacts? Grants aren't going to get me to Akara 7 to find the nice artifacts. They're not going to pay for months of excavating a single tomb to find this stuff. That's corporate money. I got to have corporate money if you want this stuff. Is it selling out, or is it finding a way to access it? In Vance's case, it's fucking selling out. Like, it's absolutely selling out because he's a douchebag.
If you're living in a hyper-capitalist society, that may be the only way to do off-world expeditions.
Yeah. I mean,
and yes, it, like, by the definition, it's selling out, but if that's your only option, then whatever. I think the reason it comes off as so, I think the reason it comes off in such a negative way is that he's not making any effort to correct any bias.
Yeah.
That's created by the whole corporate sponsorship situation. He's like, he could have said, like, I'm aware that I'm being incentivized by the corporate sponsorship, but I'm making sure to keep my sensibilities aligned to the university objectives.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm taking their money, but you can take the money, but then spend your time on outcomes that are kind of like a screw you corporate sponsor.
Yeah, he could work around it. He doesn't work around it. All he does is say, well, you don't know what I've gone through in the last couple of years. I've seen C-beams glitter in the dark off the Tannhauser Gate, which is all I could think when he's like, I've stood in the whatever desert and watched all 7 moons go into eclipse. And I was like, oh, okay, I've heard this line
Sure.
before, but not by you. And then he's like, I've lived, Stephen. I've lived. And it's like, yeah, that's what money does. You know that, right? Like, you want yacht money, you get to ride on a yacht. Like, that's what yacht money does, right? Like, it gets you to the to the desert to see the moons. But like, what did you pay to get there? Well, it turns out you paid your basic human morality because
Right. There's what you pay and there's what you've lost.
right. And what
And
did
you don't
lose?
have to lose it, but losing it ensures future sponsorships.
Well, yeah, he's a sellout. I don't know. There's no other way to describe it. And we haven't gotten there yet, but yeah, he's pretty shitty. And it also brings up a good question, which is like the morality of archaeology and how archaeology is important. That's how we learn about the past. That's how we learn about our past as humans. That's how we catalog and preserve the past.
Mm-hmm.
But also, we're literally opening people's graves, which is why I love the trend now to call mummies mummified human remains.
Yeah.
Because we've separated ourselves from the fact that these are not objects, they're people. And the kids just listened to a podcast about it, which is why I was thinking about it. But it's a really cool, it's important to be aware of the fact that we are studying people's lives and things that happen. And Akara 7 is a fucking tragedy. It's an entire world that was destroyed by its own hubris. And the fact that we talk about it at all is really fascinating. The fact that we talk about it in 1993 is equally fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that you can stick a pin in as a, maybe I should think about this more at a later date when it comes up again.
Yeah.
Kind of like, can you separate science and corporation? Can you have one and the other and both both keep their integrity? Or does science lose its dignity? Should a chocolate company fund a study on whether or not chocolate is safe? Is the question. Should a bioweapons supplier be able to send somebody on a archaeological expedition to find bioweapons? I don't know. It's a good question, and it's definitely raised by this discussion, but then not answered, which I'm totally comfortable with because I don't mind when you raise a question and then leave it open-ended because it encourages the viewer to think.
There's a lot of value in just asking the question and letting people think about it.
And then when times change and the answer changes, your show stays relevant.
Mm-hmm.
You're not providing an answer that now feels dated.
Yeah.
Because you're allowing the open-ended nature of human nature to interact
this feels
with
like
the
the kind of
creation.
question that is always going to be relevant, and the answer that each generation has is going to be a little different.
Right. And that's what helps keep the show relevant.
Yeah.
And this is when he's like, okay, Vance, but at least my hands are clean. Like, I'm not taking shortcuts. You might have, quote, lived, but at least I still sleep well at night because I still think of myself as a good guy. And Vance is like, what? What do you mean by that? And Franklin's like, interplanetary expeditions? Yeah, they don't exist. And Vance is like, what? No. What? No. And he's like, but Steven, we're best friends. And Steven's like, you know what? You make a compelling argument. Let's go get some rest. And at no point does he connect any of this to the customs murder, like the customs thing that happened. He's like, oh no, that 30-something-year-old guy definitely died of a heart attack all on his own by himself, alone in the customs office, right around the time that my friend showed up.
5 minutes before my friend showed up.
Yeah, but that's totally not related. It's perfectly fine. None. He never even hints at that he might believe there's a connection. He does hint that he maybe doesn't believe that he put it through quarantine.
Right.
Anyway, and then we go to Garibaldi, who is with the interviewer from Interstellar News Network. And we pick up in the middle of the story, which is one of my favorite tropes, when you come in right at the end of a statement and you don't know what the beginning of the statement was. Like, so anyway, that's why I can't have a dog. And you don't know what the beginning is. Right. And he goes, so anyway, after walking 50 miles through the desert, he asked me to work with him when he came here to Babylon 5. You don't know.
What kind of story has Garibaldi been telling this reporter?
I just want Garibaldi to have been bullshitting her for hours. He's like, so anyway, that's how he That's how he saved an entire family full of small children. And like, that's like, just...
I can see that.
And she's like, okay, so I just want to talk about you for a minute because there are rumors that you have a problematic past. She's like, I just want to chat about that. And he's like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, oh, so you weren't fired 5 times previously for undefined personal problems? And this is your last chance to make it before you get ousted for good? And he's like, And she goes, care to comment on that? And he's like, hard pass. I will. That is the one thing I will not talk about. But thanks for asking. No, don't thank you for asking.
I would rather have
fuck
my
you.
tonsils taken out through my ears.
Yeah, fuck you for asking. Yeah, he does say tonsils out through my ears. Yeah, I would rather have that done than talk to you about this. So deuces, I'm out. Meanwhile, Nelson is still going through it, and he's turning into a combo of the Guyver and the Blue Beetle at this point, where he takes this Blue Beetle-like thing and he sticks it on his chest. He's like, did that go here? And he sticks it on his chest. That feels right. And Dr. Franklin is back in medbay, and there's no lights on. And he's not immediately worried about this at all because I don't think anyone else works here. Everyone else is like, oh no, he can. I want to think he's so unpleasant to work with. Everyone has transferred to all the other med bays. And he's just.
They keep one med lab empty.
Yeah.
So because that's the one that Dr. Franklin likes. And so nobody else does anything there because anytime someone's using it when he walks in, he chews them out.
Yeah, or they just have to pick up tools for him the whole time. Can you hand me my scalpel? I got the RNA right where I like it. God, I am literally also a xenobiologist. I'm in the middle of my own research. And he's like, I don't fucking care. Hand me the scalpel. Why else are you here? But the lights aren't working. He's like, lights? And he goes, boop, boop. Like, I'm not going to turn the lights on. And then he's like, Nelson? And Nelson pops up and is like, boom, boom, motherfucker. And he shoots him. Pew, pew. He's going to pew, pew everybody.
Yeah.
And then Garibaldi and Sinclair go to talk to Dr. Franklin because somebody found him. We get like a line of dialogue that's like, yes, we found him in the med bay and he's been in med bay 4 recovering for a while. And now we're going to go chat with him. And he's in the med bay with the actual doctors, the one where he transferred all the people with actual medical degrees when he got there. And they're like, oh, you just stay there. It's fine. We can talk to you in bed. And he's like, no, I'm going to go. I got work to do. And I know I can do it because I'm the doctor. So he goes to stand up and he's like, yeah, nope, I can't do that. I'm going to just sit right here. And Garibaldi, I love this because he asks Dr. Franklin one question. And you can tell he immediately puts all the pieces together. He's like, okay, so what were you doing with your friend? And he's like, oh, we were studying these this organic technology that he brought on board. And he's like, organic, huh? Did it go through 48 hours of quarantine? You know, organic stuff has to go through 48 hours of quarantine. And the doctor's like, well, he said it did. And you can just watch the wheels in Garibaldi's head go, oh, he's the motherfucker that killed that guy.
I know who's at the root of all this.
Immediately, almost as if Garibaldi was the one he should have consulted the entire time. Mm-hmm. He could have at any point picked up the phone and been like, hey, Garibaldi, my friend just showed up and he has these organic pieces of shit. And he said that...
he got kind of hand wavy when I asked him about the quarantine.
Can you just check? He could have done that had he not shit on Garibaldi 15 minutes prior when Garibaldi was like... that's funny because that guy didn't have any heart problems. And he was like, oh, are you a doctor? Are you the doctor? Everybody knows that doctor. Everybody knows that doctor where you go in and you're like, my hand fell off. And they're like, oh, is that your diagnosis? Did you go to medical school? Is that your degree on the wall? No, I just know I had a hand and now my hand's on the floor. Oh, I'm sorry, but I think you're going to want to defer to my professional opinion right now. Like we've all had that doctor.
Yeah.
Which is probably why I'm really triggered by him in this episode. I feel like I need to unpack that a little bit. I feel like anybody that's been laughed at by a doctor in a doctor's office gets triggered by Steven in this episode.
Yeah.
Because
you can't have a journey if it doesn't have a beginning.
I think it's okay for you to take a Brandon Sanderson break now. It's a good line. It's good. I'm not saying it's not a good line, but you've been trying to bring him up this whole time.
What?
I can tell.
I did it once before. Did a quote from a completely different book this time.
Yeah. But all Steven says is that guy looked like these organic weapons, these organic artifacts we were studying. And this is when Garibaldi's like, huh, okay. Yeah, I don't think they went through customs because I think I would have known if somebody brought a biological weapon on board. Like, I would hope so. And Sinclair ends up confronting Vance. And he's like, dude, you fucked up. You fucked up.
You come to my house?
You come to my house. You bring this shit to me. And Vance is like, no. It was Nelson. He did it. He said he did it. He said he put him through quarantine. I don't know how he did 48 hours worth of quarantine in 30 minutes.
Any questions.
But I didn't ask clarifying questions.
He said he took care of it.
And Sinclair's like, okay, well, as far as I'm concerned, it is your fault until proven otherwise. And Vance is like, cool, heard. I got it. It's fine. I understand. Because he's got that corporate money. He's expecting a bailout.
Yep.
And this is when he says, and I find this really interesting, he says, oh, they are organic, but they need to be grafted onto someone in order to work. Motherfucker, you knew that? You knew?
Right.
You knew they could be grafted onto somebody and you guys are just working with them with your bare hands? You handed that to your friend Steven and you were like, here, rub it on you a little bit.
You let him touch it?
Have you tried licking it?
You knew that it needed a host?
Look at this one. Don't you think it'd look pretty pressed to your chest? Like, what is your fucking problem? What? Sinclair's like, okay, well, do you have any ideas how to get, like, what do we, like, what the fuck? Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And Vance is like, oh, I know, I got it. You should probably let me finish doing the research I came here to do. So that
we need to reverse engineer this.
So that I can get everything I wanted, even though there's this minor disruption that I don't really care about because I don't care about Nelson. And they're like, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Meanwhile, Nelson is roaming around the countryside vaporizing people.
Yep.
So he goes, protect, and then he vaporizes these guys. And they definitely made a cutout of a person with their hand up and spray painted it on one side and then flipped it, spray painted it on the other side. So it's definitely a mirror image. You would have seen that on a CRT TV. We can't even hand wave that. But you know what you couldn't have done? Rewound and show your friend who was in the kitchen getting a drink.
Unless you were recording the whole time anyway.
With a VHS tape. Yeah. And then the reporter walks into the command dome as they're trying to figure out how to find this guy and stop him. And she's like, this is news. There's something happening. This is news. People have the right to know. And he's like,
you are in a secure area.
Yeah, get the fuck out. And she's like, people have the right to know. And he's like, well, I had the right to put you in the brig for 2 days. So you're going to want to get the fuck out. And she does not, in fact, get the fuck out. She goes to follow Sinclair as he goes off to send another transmission. And Ivanova darts over and jumps in front of her and goes, don't.
Don't. You're too young to experience that much pain.
I love Ivanova
so much character exposure. Like, we're doing so much depth into Ivanova's character with that line.
Yeah. Well, the reporter stares her down for a second, and Ivanova just calmly stands there like, you think I'm fucking kidding? I'm not fucking kidding. And so eventually she storms off. And meanwhile, Nelson is roaming around B5, and I wanted to point out that it's a really good thing that there are huge swaths of Babylon 5 that contain no one. Kind of like in anime where whenever they go to have a big giant showdown where they're going to blow each other up with a bunch of...
Oh yeah, they're just out in like a desert.
Yeah, somehow they're all in a barren wasteland where they can blow mountains up and shit.
Yeah.
Babylon 5 has those worked in. Those are the alien confrontation areas.
They're strategically distributed around the whole station.
Yeah. And he ends up going into the bulkheads. They confront him and he's like, to the left. And he goes through the bulkheads and they're like, oh no, there's too much shielding. We're too good at this. We can't. There's no way we can find him now until he fires. So they start at the outside ring and work in ostensibly to catch him. And Dr. Franklin and Vance are still working on trying to figure out how to stop this guy. And they find what looks like a brain. And they're like, maybe this thing has the information in it. And they're like, put it in the pew-pew scanner. And they're like, pew-pew scanner to the rescue. And so they put it in there. And apparently...
They check the tech.
Apparently that's enough to get all the information out. Because the next time we see the doctor, he's like...
Hold on. They hook it up to the biosensor.
They do. Yeah, not the medical scanner, but the biosensor.
Yep.
Keep up. But this is when the doctor looks down because Nelson's coat has fallen on the ground. And there's a
taser.
Cardiac taser sticking out of one of the pockets. And he picks it up and puts it in his own pocket like...
Defibrillator.
Defibrillator. Yes, the defibrillator.
Defibrillator.
If that ends up becoming a product, I'm going to trademark that name right now. I came up with defibrillator. Write that down. So, basically, this guy's a Terminator. They created it as a way of protecting their...
Because they kept getting invaded.
They kept getting invaded, so they were like, we're so tired of being invaded. So they made...
They really hyped up how the illegal immigrants were sneaking into their country.
Yep. And so they decided to put their foot down and create this robot that would kill anyone that was not pure.
A biological robot.
That would not, as a shortcut,
Yeah.
which is what Stephen was complaining about earlier. Almost as if sometimes
Taking shortcuts is bad.
that are morally questionable are bad. I'm not going to learn anything from
the
this.
moral
It's fine.
compromises associated with shortcuts.
Yeah.
are
So
bad.
they created this guy to destroy anyone that was not pure Ikaran. But the problem was that the parameters were set by a coalition of religious fanatics and military extremists who ran the government. This is so far-fetched. I'm just not sure that I can really wrap my head around this.
You mean
I'm
like
just
a eugenics program?
I'm really struggling with the idea that religious fanatics and military extremists could, quote, run a government? That's really weird. I don't know. Anyway,
Fake news.
they set the parameters of what constitutes pure Ikaran so high that no one qualified. And if you're keeping track, which I know you are, this is the exact same plot line as the Futurama Christmas episode where we learned that they made a Santa Claus robot
Oh,
who
that
would
guy.
punish anyone who was naughty. But it turns out by his standards, everyone is naughty. So Santa Claus comes and tries to kill everybody on Christmas Eve. So no one celebrates Christmas anymore. I love that episode. Almost as much as when they give a rebate or they give money back. Nixon becomes president again, Robot Nixon, and he ends up giving out money as like a economic stimulation thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it works out to like $100 a person. And so they're all like, how are we going to spend our $100? So they all have these grand plans. And so Fry decides to buy 100 cups of $1 coffee. And there's a little counter in the bottom of the episode as he's drinking his cups of coffee. And when he drinks his 100th one in one day, he like glows golden and time stops and he can run around. It's really good. He saves a bunch of people from a fire. Anyway, they destroyed all their creators. They destroyed all the bad guys. And then they fucking killed everybody else too. And then they all just sort of died of neglect. Because they had no one else to protect. They had nobody to maintain them. So they died over the course of the next 1,000 years. And so Sinclair's like, thank you for telling me all of that while I was running around with a gun and armor on while you had no gun and no armor. So thank you for that. But also, what can I do about that? And he's like, well, it's built on an actual personality of this guy named Tular. So theoretically, if you could get around the computer logic, you could interact directly with Tular. And Sinclair's like, hell yeah.
Got it.
Wouldn't you know, my particular speciality is pissing people off.
I love rage baiting people.
He does. So then we have this showdown where they try shooting it harder than they've shot it the last 2 times they've shot it. And big shocker, it doesn't kill it. But what it does do is just point its weapon at the ground, burn a hole, and drop through the ground. They're like, we've put up blast doors. It can't go anywhere. And it's like, what about below me? And it just falls through the floor.
The floor can be a door if you shoot it hard enough.
Anything's a floor. Anything is a door if you shoot it hard enough. What do they do that in? Is that The Fifth Element? where he shoots in a circle and then he jumps and the whole thing falls down?
Yep.
Like that. And Sinclair's like, okay, well, this is my moment. So he jumps down through the hole and Garibaldi's like, Commander, what the fuck? He's like, I got this. And he is so sweaty. He is so sweaty. And he must be sweaty because he's wearing his flight suit. He's wearing his uniform.
and his armor.
And his armor on
flak
top
jacket.
of it. And this is when he starts yelling at it. And I love it because he could have just been yelling like a regular person talking into a microphone. But he's like voice acting this. He's like, you killed everyone.
He's just talking into the microphone on his hand.
Yeah, and he's like,
Over the
Ikara
loudspeaker.
is dead. Like, he could have half-assed this, but Sinclair never has-asses when he can whole-ass or hole and a half-ass sometimes.
Yeah.
He's like, he really could have been like, Ikara's dead. And he's like, Ikara is dead.
If you're enough of an asshole, you can hole and a half-ass something.
That's what I'm saying. Because your ass gets involved, right? So you can get all of it in there. And he's got crazy eyes. Like he's really committing to this very predictable but very fulfilling moment where he's like, I'm illustrating to this thing that was created to protect that it actually did the opposite of what it was created to do.
It became the thing it sought to destroy.
And he goes, we're all aliens to one another. Too tall, too short, too light, too dark. No one is pure. And he's like, Nelson's seen it. That guy, that body that you're in, he's seen it. Why don't you ask him? Look into his mind and see what Ikara is like now. And the guy's like, oh my God, it's all dead. 1,000 years dead. And he's like, yeah, there's your pure world, your perfect world. Everybody's gone. It's pure when there's nobody there to fuck it up.
Yep.
And he goes, you forgot the first rule of the fanatic. When you become obsessed with the enemy, you become the enemy.
You and the rest. You forgot the first rule of the fanatic. When you become obsessed with the enemy, you become the enemy.
Oh, God.
Big oof.
Every once in a while, Babylon 5 will throw something at you and you're like, oh, God, pow, right to the kisser. You got me. God damn, that's a good line. That's a good line.
That's a really good line.
That's a really fucking good line. And the guy goes, Ikara! Tular, I guess.
And he self-destructs.
Well, he goes, great maker, which is interesting.
Okay, so
Unless he's specifically referring to his actual, like, maker, like inventor.
one of the things that, I guess, objections that popped into my head while we were watching this is, how does Tular speak English? Well, obviously, he's using
Nelson
to translate.
I thought of the same thing.
And so when Tular himself, or Tular itself is talking, it's translating whatever they are imagining
Great Maker
to
is the most
English.
accessible. I gotcha.
Yeah, it's the most accurate, translation that Nelson's brain can construct.
I gotcha.
And Nelson probably spent a lot of time in the Zocalo, and he probably heard Londo say, "Great Maker," a lot of times.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sold. I gotcha. Good explanation.
Mm-hmm.
But he
That's
ends
what
up
I'm here for.
ripping his chest piece out. He's like, Blue Beetle no longer. And he pulls it out. And then
Self-destruct.
he lands on the ground and turns into Naked Nelson.
Like immediately.
Like immediately. Like no time. That just
He doesn't need
right
to
there.
like heal from it or anything.
Hey, it's technology. It's fine. And then we go back to Dr. Franklin and Vance. And Dr. Franklin's like, oh, how's your bro Vance? And he's like, oh, he's doing fine. He's safe.
How's your bro Nelson?
Yeah, that guy. What did I say?
How's your bro Vance?
I don't know. Like I wasn't reading it from my notes or anything. He's like, hey, so you definitely dodged quarantine and killed that dude? And Vance is like,
I didn't kill him.
Oh.
I just let Nelson take care of it, and I didn't ask any questions.
He's like, details. He's like, I'm working for a bioweapons supplier. You think they're going to care if I kill a dude? Pfft, whatever, man.
I've been bailed. They pulled me out of bigger pickles than this before.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, you did this for like a boatload of money? He's like, try again, son. How about enough money you can't even imagine how much? That's how much money I did it from. How much is a man's life worth? it turns out I know the exact dollar amount. He's like, you deliberately endangered 500,000 people on this space station for your fucking payday? And he's like, I mean, kinda?
I wouldn't use those words.
He's like, I didn't really expect anybody to get hurt. And he's like, oh, you mean like the customs agent that got killed? And he was like, well, I didn't know Nelson was going to kill him. I didn't care if he killed him, but I didn't know he was going to kill him. He's like, it's okay. Just don't turn me in. I'll pencil you in and I'll make you rich and it'll be just fine. They're probably going to pay my way out of court no matter what anyway. So like, you might as well profit from it.
We'll
Let's do
split it.
this. And he's like, oh, sorry, too late. I kind of already fucking turned you in.
You loser.
Because 2 security officers appear behind him and he's like, Franklin. Like,
Shame on you.
like I thought you were more worldly than this, is what it looks like. Like,
Yeah.
wow. Okay. Well, you made your choice. And then we come back to Sinclair, who is limping around his quarters because he got punched quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
It looks real painful. And Garibaldi walks in. And this is the shining moment of this entire fucking episode. So I forgot,
I'd say
honestly, that this happened.
This is the other half of the jester archetype.
This is great.
Is the jester, makes fun. He's the comedy relief, whatever. But the jester can also speak truth to the king without
Consequence.
consequence. Yeah.
We were fully set up to be on track to have this be the lone man archetype.
Yep.
The lone man against the world, the MacGyver, the I got it all, I'm going to save everybody because I'm simply the best. We were fully on track for that. No one would have questioned it. It would have been completely fine. And then we get this moment. And I'm not even going to try to paraphrase it. I'm literally just going to grab the entire quote and drop it in here because Garibaldi says it. I don't need to repeat it.
Listen, can I talk to you for a second?
Sure.
The whole station's talking about how you were willing to risk your life to stop that thing.
I didn't risk.
Let me finish. This is the 3rd time in the last year you've put yourself on the line like this.
I didn't know anyone was counting.
Jeff, you're my friend. You've been my friend a lot longer than you've been my commanding officer, so I think I'm entitled to say this. We were both in Earth Force during the war. I wasn't on the line, but I did my share. I know a lot of guys who came out of the war changed. Some came out better, some came out worse. A lot of them have this problem. The war gave them definition, direction, purpose. Without it, they don't know how to fit in anymore, so they keep looking for ways to go out in a blaze of glory. Some people call that being a hero, maybe so. I don't know. I've never been one. Me? I think they're looking for something worth dying for because it's easier than finding something worth living for.
Finished.
Yeah. I guess that covers it.
Michael. I don't have an answer for you. And I think maybe I should.
And he literally addresses to Sinclair's face, this is a problem. There are people whose job this is. You don't need to rush in and try to kill yourself because not everybody commits suicide quickly.
Looking for something to die for is a whole lot easier than finding something to live for.
It's a good moment.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great, what did I write down? Look at that non-toxic masculine vulnerability.
Or positive masculine vulnerability.
This is a very good moment of like, I'm your bro. Okay. And I've been your bro a lot longer than I've been your employee.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to sit down and I'm going to take this risk because I think you're worth it.
Yeah.
Because I think what we have is worth it. And I think I would rather risk losing my job than risk losing you. And the best part is the way Sinclair responds to this moment of vulnerability from Garibaldi. And he says, I don't have an answer for you, but I probably should. Like, wow. I didn't even think of it that way. Or no one has, because you directly stated it to me in that way, I see where you're coming from.
Right. Garibaldi, this statement, this, I don't know, spiel from Garibaldi
Yeah.
was very provocative. And Sinclair could have responded with, I didn't ask for your fucking opinion.
Yeah.
Dude.
Next time I want your opinion, I'll give it to you.
But instead, he's like, I'm going to be a little vulnerable right now and say, I see where you're going, and I need to think about this.
This was a good moment. I'm guilty of sometimes being like, Sinclair, I have to endure him for a season so I can get to Sheridan. And that's not fair. Because Sinclair is always a better character when I rewatch it than I remember him being. We just spend so much more time with Sheridan. We get such a range of things that happen to him that you get a deeper appreciation for him. But it's not fair of me to write Sinclair off. Because the fact that we addressed that he's not just a war hero, that maybe also left him broken, is great. And a little bit revolutionary for the time. Where it was like, well, my dick will protect me from PTSD. It literally punches away the trauma, so I don't have to deal with it.
So this was the other thing that resonated with the book I just finished, Wind and Truth, with one of the main characters.
Yeah.
They have to get faced with the situation of you're always putting yourself in danger to save other people.
Yeah.
Quit it.
Why? Yeah. Why are you doing that?
Why do you feel compelled to repeatedly put yourself into deadly situations?
Right.
Do you care so little about yourself?
Right.
Yeah.
And do you trust everyone else so little?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a good moment.
And
I deeply appreciate that moment.
It just straight up addresses all of this man does not delegate stuff that I've been saying.
Right. And it skates right up to that trope. Exactly what you were saying, the expected trope. And then it goes, hey, maybe there's a reason. Just like Jakar. Jakar doesn't get to just be the mustache twirling villain. He gets to be the guy with justification. His entire world was conquered, enslaved, and stripped bare. They have only been free for a little while.
Right.
And now they are becoming a power in the galaxy. And they were literally just this pawn of the Centauri Empire for so long that they are learning how to be a power in their own right and shaping what that power looks like. And yes, sometimes it may feel villainous, but it's never without justification. And that's what makes them good characters. And that's what makes them good villains.
Yeah.
Because a villain should, on some level, always be understandable. You should always be able to see where they're coming from.
There should be a perspective where the villain sees themselves as the good guy.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what makes, for me personally anyway, and for you, that's what makes a good villain.
Yeah.
And then we come to Stephen Franklin, and I keep calling him Stephen Franklin because I abbreviate him as SF in my notes. So when I look at the notes, I just think Stephen Franklin. But Dr. Franklin and Ivanova are in the Zocalo, and they're at this counter, and this is kind of our ubiquitous counter where we hang out whenever we need to have conversations.
It's the bar, the chat bar.
With decorative copper bowls full of blue marbles. Apparently,
those are alien snacks.
Okay, well, apparently Spoo is a J. Michael Straczynski thing. Remember the Spoo is particularly fresh today?
Yeah.
Well, I guess there's Spoo in the episodes of, because he writes for She-Ra, Princess of Power, the original series. There's a couple of episodes that are written by JMS, and he included Spoo in those. So they're kind of his Easter egg. They're like, was it cherry apple cigarettes that, wow, I know Jane Michael.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's the Kill Bill guy. Kill Bill.
Oh, Quentin Tarantino.
Quentin Tarantino has a brand of cigarettes that are in every single one of his movies.
In his Quentin Tarantino movie universe.
Yes, exactly. And that's how you know it's all happening in the same universe. So canonically, Babylon 5 and She-Ra Princess of Power happen in the same universe.
Mm-hmm.
But Dr. Franklin is like, I'm just thinking about what happened. Because Ivanova is there with him and she's like, you okay? Like, what's happening? And he's like, I'm just thinking about like, wow, I just went through some shit. And you know, back home, there is a growing pro-Earth movement. And there's rumors of hate groups. And on all sides, there's fanatics. Like there's fanatics pro and against. And I couldn't help but feel like the lesson of Ikara 7, where they literally created a thing to destroy all non-pure Ikarans without really understanding that there's no such thing as a pure Ikaran. Like, was this a preview of what the future is going to be like for Earth? And Ivanova's like, what? No, I don't believe we're that foolish. You know what the guy said. If we don't learn from the past, we're doomed to repeat it like that. And then these dudes show up and they're like, hello, Dr. Stephen Franklin. We are here to confiscate the bioweapons that you have. And he's like, what? What do you mean you're going to take them? They're like, oh, yeah.
Who do you work for?
Yeah, the Earth Force Bioweapons Division is here to take the artifacts because, for reasons. And
So I looked it up. Earth Alliance is the whole Earth government.
okay, and Earth
Force is the military.
Okay. And Ivanova's like, well, okay, I guess nobody reads that quote anymore. I'm going to go over and get drunk with the rest of the aliens. This is a good seed. It's a bloop. We had 2 seeds actually in this episode that we're going to hear again. One we mentioned the Rim.
Yep.
When Garibaldi said, well, you get sent out to the Rim and I get to be commander of the station, which the Rim is the edge of known space.
Right.
There's literally a point beyond which we don't know what the fuck is out there. Nobody does. And that's referred to as the Rim. And then also we get this like, hey, bloop, stuff is happening back on Earth that's not like great. There's definitely a, not nationalistic, but a planetanistic. There's a planetary, an Earth central, like a Terran centralist ideology that is gaining ground. And that it is becoming a more and more predominant view that Earth should take care of Earth business.
An isolationist
Yeah, and
movement.
that's what the interviewer asks. She asks, is space worth it? Because in the end, Sinclair's
finally get the interview.
He's actually giving the interview. And don't we have enough problems at home? Shouldn't we just stay home and take care of ourselves? Maybe space isn't worth it after all. And Sinclair's like, no. We have to stay out here because eventually the sun is going to go out. We will lose not just ourselves, we will lose the entirety of our culture, and everything that we are and everything that we have gone through will be for nothing unless we go to the stars.
Is it worth it? Should we just pull back, forget the whole thing as a bad idea, and take care of our own problems at home?
No. We have to stay here. And there's a simple reason why. Ask 10 different scientists about the environment, population control, genetics, and you'll get 10 different answers. But there's one thing every scientist on the planet agrees on. Whether it happens in 100 years, or 1,000 years, or 1,000,000 years, eventually our sun will grow cold and go out. When that happens, it won't just take us. It'll take Marilyn Monroe, and Lao Tzu, and Einstein, and Morobuto, and Buddy Holly, and Aristophanes, and all of this was for nothing. Unless we go to the stars.
And that's the end of the episode. Cut to credits.
Yep.
And it's like, we could stay looking inward. We could stay afraid of everything that isn't us and everything that is different. And we could end up like a Ikara 7 where we create an ultimate weapon and it ends up destroying us. Or we could go to the stars. We could expand our perspective. We could learn to be more and learn to be greater and learn cooperation and learn everything that there is to learn out there from the variety of experiences that are available to us. And that's what we have to do, because eventually, if we stay too small, we will all just disappear. And yes, this had a monster of the week, but I love how perfunctory this monster of the week is. One, he has like 5 scenes, and he's gone 2/3 of the way through the episode. He's gone by the half-hour mark. And then the whole rest of it is just...
Right. The whole point of the monster of the week wasn't for the monster of the week.
No.
It was to parallel the xenophobic and isolationist movement.
How far away is Earth from this?
That's happening on Earth.
How far away is Earth from this?
Yeah.
Right? And chronologically, while this is happening in 1993, we're dealing with the AIDS epidemic.
Yeah.
And a president who would not acknowledge that AIDS even existed, and a culture that perpetuated the idea that only undesirable people got AIDS. And you and I both grew up through that.
Yep.
I remember at school, I don't want to drink at the water fountain after that person because I don't know if I'm going to get AIDS. It was a weird time. It was a very isolationist time. It was a very, we watched another episode. We watched Forever Night, and there is an episode of Forever Night where we address the AIDS epidemic. Of course, we create a virus that only vampires can get. And so therefore it's not valid to research how to fix it because only vampires are getting it. But it's just it's interesting how they say things that feel relevant now, and we're not actually having the same conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's just iterations on a theme.
Right.
And it's good to rewatch these shows and see that, one, we're having the same conversations, even if the way we've talked about it has changed. But it's also slightly upsetting that we're still having this conversation 30 years later. And I don't really know how I feel about it, except that they raised a lot of really interesting points to think about in this episode. And then really
still feel very relevant today.
Really left us to think about them in a way that because this episode could have felt extremely dated. Like if we had gone any farther on any of the arguments, it could have felt like, we don't talk about that anymore.
Right.
Or that's not how we would have said that now.
Mm-hmm.
But instead they're just like, what
they
if?
They leave it just open-ended enough.
Yeah, what if, boop, should we go to space? Or should we take care of our own problems? And he's like, yeah, we should go to space. But it's great. I could just... Babylon 5, man. Anyway, we're 3 episodes in? 4 episodes in? And I am reminded of why I love it immediately. So, good. And I'm going to give Sinclair more grace in the future. I'm never going to give the Soul Hunter episode grace, but that's on me. And I know that. It's not a bad episode. It's a bad episode to me. And that's okay. Everybody gets to have things that they don't like and things that they love. And hey, isn't it great that the whole tapestry of human existence and human experience is so varied and wide and rich and interesting? And how can we appreciate all of it if we don't have our eyes open to see all of it? And that's kind of the lesson that I take from Babylon 5 every single time. And I think the next episode is actually Parliament of Dreams.
So close.
So close. One of my favorite episodes. What's interesting is the credits for this one named Lanier as Bill Mummy, but I don't think he was actually in it.
Oh. Yeah, he hasn't been introduced
yet. Because I was like,
yet.
okay, cool, he's going to be in this one. And then I don't think he was in it at all.
They probably just put him in all of them.
Delenn hasn't been in the last 2 episodes. She was in Soul Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
But she wasn't in Born to the Purple, and she's not in Infection. Nope. We're due some Delenn. There was no Londo in this one either.
You're right.
God.
No Londo, no Jakar, no Delenn.
That's because the Ikara guy, Tular, didn't go to the casino. He was like, oh, they're fine. I didn't even get to talk. Jakar has new contacts. I forgot to mention it totally. In Born to the Purple is he goes from having like just red eye contacts to having full on sclera red contacts, which I love because pretty much no other Narn has them.
Yeah.
Natat doesn't. It's just her regular eyes. And then he has these huge contacts and he's got to wear them a lot more than anybody else does.
Mm-hmm.
He wears them well.
Yeah.
It's great. Anyway, I think it's a good place to leave it. I think that's a decent amount of time discussing that episode. I pulled some pretty big clips. I'm going to put them in here because there's some like I don't want to. How can I choose like what part of this entire clip to put in there? Because the whole thing is good, which means eventually it's just going to be the episode audio.
With our voice overlay commentary.
Yeah. Let's just provide a commentary you can listen to with each episode.
Ooh, like riff tracks.
Like riff tracks. Well, that'd be terrible. No one would do it. I don't know. Maybe they would. I don't know. Maybe that's the next version of Come In 81 Kilo. It's just us talking over the entire episode.
Yeah.
That would be pretty funny. We did that a couple times, actually. We had drunk episodes where we got progressively more drunk as the episode went on.
Yeah.
Not last night, though, because no one can get... Well, you should get drunk after last night, but not during last night. Yeah. All right. Well, we live for the one.
We die for the one.
Until next time, friends.
Bye.
Bye.